Evil Pixel.
An interesting thing about the Super Mario franchise is that even the unreleased games and unused contents within the games are fairly known within the community. There isn't much that isn't known about Super Mario. While Nintendo does keep a few things tight-lipped, what I'm trying to say is that a majority of the things related to Mario is pretty well known, and not necessarily a secret. Except for the game that we'll be talking about in today's video, Mario Motors. I searched all over YouTube and couldn't really find people mentioning this game aside from about one or two smaller YouTube channels. So I figured I'd make a video covering Mario Motors with as much information as I could find about the game. So let's get into it. Let's begin by talking about video game designer Yutaka Saito. He's responsible for publishing a few well-known titles including Seaman for the Dreamcast, as well as Seaman 2 and Sim Tower. Now he's also responsible for a few lesser-known titles such as Odama for the GameCube and the game in the Guild series called Arrow Porter. Honestly, I've never heard of it, but it's in his credentials, so there you go. Now, similar to a few other videos I've discussed in the past, there's a reason why a majority of people haven't spoken about this game, and that's simply because there isn't much known about it. As Miyamoto was directly involved with Mario Motors, that's probably one of the reasons why not much information was let out. Miyamoto seems to keep his projects very close to the chest. Now the little that we do know, we mainly know because of an interview that Yutaka Saito did with Destructoid during the conference at Reboot Develop 2018. And while it isn't very much information, it provides a good insight on what it was supposed to be, and it's pretty cool and different. Now according to Saito, Satoru Iwata and Shigeru Miyamoto, along with Saito himself, would always get together and have some tea and simply talk about video games. Well, apparently one day they had a meeting, and Satoru Iwata asked the Yutaka Saito, "What have you been interested in lately?" Now Saito immediately recognized that Iwata was wanting ideas for an upcoming project. So Saito said he was getting interested in sculpting chunks. Iwata was puzzled as to what Yutaka Saito was referring to, so Saito continued and explained that he was referring to sculpting things from metal and how it interested him at the time. He got the idea from being intrigued how watches, camera lenses, and MacBooks are made. It was very appealing to him, and sculpting objects out of metal chunks is something he really wanted to work into a game. Iwata and Miyamoto were very intrigued with what Saito was saying and decided to give it a shot with turning it into a video game. This concept was then conceptualized as a racing simulation game of sorts, where the player creates the engine of a racing car. Now, I'm not sure if that's the whole basis of the game, but that's primarily what was shown and spoken about. Now, in the interview, Saito described the game as, quote, shaving and sculpting out of a chunk of metal to make a cylinder, which then decides the ability of your engine. So basically, how the player decided to sculpt the motor would affect how the motor of the engine ran. My guess would be that this would affect the displacement and the size of the motor itself possibly. Saito also wanted the players to be able to blow into the DS microphone for some type of effect, but that idea was scrapped as he stated it would cause children to get out of breath. It also wasn't stated what exactly was the reason that they would be blowing into the microphone. Now, during this interview, Saito shared a few of the only known images to exist of this project. Some of these images show the DS's compatibility with the game, as well as an F1 style race car. And also what many have referred to as an older version of Mario. But I don't think that's the case, it's probably just a random character that happens to look like Mario. The images have a date of 2008. But it is known that the game was being conceptualized way before that time. Reason being is because E3 2004 showcased a carving tech demo for the DS that had similar ideas as was described by Saito. Now even though I can't read Japanese, The few of the other images shared are very interesting. The engine cylinders can be seen being cut, as well as the diagram of a sideways engine, which is kinda weird because engines are usually vertical, but I guess that's the randomness that could be had in this game. But that could also just be me reading too much into it. It could just be a simple diagram, not an actual blueprint of the engine used in the game. However, the same engine can be seen showing combustion with the cylinder, so it's possible that this could have been a mechanical or educational type of game, which is also really cool, because Nintendo doesn't have very many of those in its platform. Now, according to the website Kikizo.com, which has older archived E3 interviews of the 2000 era, Yutaka Saito was quoted as saying, "The carving demo removed any doubt I had of the DS's touchscreen sensitivity. The demo started by making your selection of a log, a steel cylinder, a watermelon, or a Mario wood sculpture. Whichever item you select is sent to the top of the screen and laid horizontally, then spun. At this point, your touch pen becomes a razor-sharp carving knife. Touching the object on the very edge only makes a skin-deep incision, while moving in deeper cuts away an increasing amount of meat. Most impressive was the surgical precision of the carving on the DS touchscreen." Now, the question that I have about this cancelled project is what else could the players have control of besides the engine sculpting? I doubt the engine sculpting will be the only thing that would be available in this game. Would there be any other type of creations, such as the vehicle itself, the transmission, or perhaps the suspension of the vehicle? Because I could see how only focusing on the engine could be somewhat bland and probably get boring pretty fast, especially for kids. Now, as far as why this game got cancelled, it isn't very clear at all, so much so that Saito doesn't even know why it was cancelled. When asked why the game never made it to development, he stated, "I can't tell you, but please guess." And honestly, it really is a shame that this game never got released. I think it would have been really cool to have a game mixing elements of both Super Mario franchise and a simulation type of game such as Gran Turismo. It really is a shame because I could have definitely seen Mario Motors going the Gran Turismo point of view of racing simulations, and it would have brought a whole new fan base to the platform. As many may remember, Nintendo did team up with Mercedes-Benz recently to bring their GLA SUV to Mario Kart 8 a few years back. And with Nintendo having so much influence in the world, I doubt automobile manufacturers would deny them using their vehicles in their games. Now, some interesting facts is that the title Mario Motors has been referenced in other Nintendo places and products. For example, a couple of people have noticed that the Mario Motors name has been seen in the recently opened Super Nintendo World at Universal Studios in Japan. Now, I'm not exactly sure if it was promoting a Nintendo product, as I haven't actually been there myself, or if perhaps that's just the name of a store that they have in the actual theme park. But it looks like that's just the title they may have given to a store inside of the theme park perhaps, for souvenirs and products. But again, that's just my guess. But it's important to note that it may be very possible that these references have absolutely nothing to do with this unreleased game, and more so just the catchy name they decided to go with. But then again, it is possible that it could be related, as once again, Shigeru Miyamoto was heavily involved in the theme park's development, as he was with the unreleased Mario Motors game. Now, as far as Yutaka Saito, he eventually turned to mobile development and is actually a very prominent advocate for iPhone application development. In fact, he still speaks about app development in his personal blog site, so if anyone knows how to read Japanese, I'll leave a link in the description below. Now, I gotta be honest, I was hoping that during last year's Nintendo Giga Leak, this game would have been among some of those that were leaked so we could have a bit more of a perspective of what exactly this game was. But unfortunately, that is what we know of Mario Motors. Thank you guys for watching. Now, we recently started streaming on Twitch, so check us out on there if you want to hang out and just talk about any of our videos. And join our Discord if you want to know when we're live or just want to talk about some unreleased games. I'll leave the links in the description below. And I'll catch you all next time.